Hi, welcome back to the A&S Way with me, Sel and Ant. This is part 4 in our series of our life journey,
which is a continuation of part 3 and what was it called? The early days.
The early days, our kind of when we started establishing ourselves with work, earning money, getting our first apartment. So if you haven't already, there's 3
prior videos
in this series which really give context, background, and really explain kind of the background to what we're explaining in this video.
She meant if you haven't already, go and watch them. You just missed out the watch them.
Oh yeah, go and watch.
Okay.
Right. So this video is really going to focus on how we transition from that apartment. So if you've watched the other video, we've kind of explained how different things were for me and Ant in the sense of Ant was earning. He was earning since you were 17.
Yep.
And Ant had made very early decisions on getting that apartment, on how we could get there on a very minimal income, about 26,000 that he was on at that time. And really that allowed me to go to university where I wasn't really earning any money. And really at that point, our life decisions on how we get to where we want to be, and we're still trying to figure out where we want to be as well.
Yeah, that part never stops. It's actually it'll be a theme. We never stop planning ahead or trying to figure that out, but at this point in our life it's even more chaotic because you don't have money really. We're just, everything we've got goes out on bills and a little bit of fun that we would go and do on my cars, and you just don't have that, not the grounding, that safety net that we do now. So it's a little bit more difficult to narrow down how you navigate to the next step. So for this is the transition between really not having anything, 26,000, owning or having a mortgage on a small apartment in the southeast of England, to buying a house that we really wanted to live in, apart from the fact that we realised that we couldn't afford that house, so we had to make another sacrifice and move 30 miles further into Kent, which was a whole discussion.
Yeah. But in that time, so at the time we was in the apartment, I was at university and on a degree that was funded by the government, or taxpayers, however you want to call it. And I remember somebody, when they asked me which degree I was doing and what profession I was going into, somebody made this comment to me, "Oh, you're never going to earn much money doing that." And it really stuck in my mind because it wasn't something at the forefront of my mind when I opted into that. I really did genuinely choose something based on an area that I was interested in. I loved being in the hospital. I liked the idea. I was passionate about healthcare. And I picked something, oncology, that was very interesting to me, and I truly enjoyed my degree. So everything that I have done to this very day has always been centered around what I personally enjoy doing, and because of that I think I excel, because I'm doing it for that, not based on the money. But that being said, it really stuck in my mind because I thought, my initial reaction is that's really closed-minded to make that assumption because I'm going to work in the NHS. I thought in my mind, well, you don't know what I'm going to do with this degree. And that was the mindset that I had from that point. So when I qualified, I did go and work for a hospital in London, but anyone that knows about the NHS, you are banded. A lot, like most, like teachers are banded, police,
any government, public. What are they called? Public servants, I think it used to be called, but where you work for a government body, it's banded.
Yeah, so that means you are restricted in that sense. You come out of university, you will be based on a particular levelling. If you're in London, you'll get slightly more. And I came out on 25,000 at that time, and with a first class degree, which you weren't really happy with.
So I had a lot of comments, or not a lot of comments, I had some strong opinions on it, and this is where I'm fairly consistent. So I remember a specific conversation where I said to you, if I am out of work, can you afford to maintain? If you cannot, this is not the job, you need to leave. Now that might rub people up the wrong way, but I don't see things in the sense of, oh, that's such a lovely thing to do. Well, it's not if you can't afford to maintain your life. If you cannot afford to live in your home, it's not a nice thing to do. because now you're going to be homeless. Oh, but the job's great. Yeah, but you live on the street, which is a very simplified version about how I view things. So if it isn't white, it's black. That's it. Can you afford it? Yes or no? No, this is not the job.
And the truth is, it was a huge struggle. I was paying half. We split the bills 50-50, and it was genuinely hard. I didn't have much money left at the end after I covered all my bills. But also, I recognised in myself that I was not going at the same pace as everyone else when I was at work, and I wanted to go at a different pace. And the problem with the NHS structure was it was very limiting. You have to go it this way. You're not really paid on your individual worth.
You're not paid on your skill or your worth to the
you're
business.
Just banded with the group.
That's it.
And that's where I personally struggled.
Yeah. Whereas for me, and I know I said we started on 26, but I'd progressed at this point and started doing the different jobs. What I would say around the comment that I made prior to the money is, there was a point in my career where I was on enough money to sustain my life comfortably, so I could live, I could go out to track days, I could afford my car, but it wasn't a huge amount of money. So my thing was never, you need to earn a ton of money so we can have the great life. It was, are you able to maintain this happy lifestyle? We were quite comfortable, or I was quite comfortable, and the NHS in particular, where you're banded quite lowly, does not give you that. It doesn't even provide enough for you to sustain just your basic living costs, let alone a comfortable lifestyle. If you think if you're on 25,000 and you're in the suburbs, you might have £1,000 worth of mortgage, which means all your money is gone. So I just wanted to get across that it isn't about you should be earning huge sums. It was about, can you maintain a lifestyle?
Yeah, and it was very common for me amongst the people I was working with in the NHS to see kind of like the struggles of working in central London and not really being able to afford and balance rent and your expenses and everything. And when you think about that and how hard you're working, I mean, I was on my feet all day, working extremely long hours, and it's not easy. You're not getting that much in return for it. And yes, people will say you don't go to the NHS to do that, but you do want to live. So it's these these fundamentals that you should have.
This again is another example of, you have to be realistic with yourself, and you also have to not really take on the burden that people try and put on you. You should do it for the greater good. You should do it. No, have your clear goals and objectives. Now, that clearly was not going to meet ours, a joint goal. So you have to cut that off. You have to find another way to use the skills that you've taken from that and go somewhere else, which leads us to your...
Yeah, so for me, I knew I had to go and work clinically in the NHS to get me to where I wanted to be anyway. But I had already established within the first 6 months of working there that it didn't suit my personality and my drive and the things I wanted, because it was too restrictive for me. So in that first year, I started looking into my other options, and I was already aware of this, that lots of people in my field went to work for the companies that build the machines, the software, the technology. And actually that was something I was super interested in anyway. And I started looking on their websites, looking at what jobs they had available, and bearing in mind as well, at this point, it wasn't necessarily about getting to the USA. So for us at that time, I don't think we were really thinking even moving to the USA.
Not as a real thing. I think we'd liked it, probably in the back of our minds, thought it'd be great to live there, but it wasn't a plan that we had built at that point.
Which is actually key for a lot of the people, like you guys watching this. It wasn't something that I knew from university and like, okay, I want to go to the USA and structured everything. That came a lot later. With me, I knew I wanted to work for one of these companies, went on their websites, and all of them claimed you needed 3 years, 5 years experience working clinically. So this is what I done. I did not see many jobs come up that I thought I qualified for. So what I started to do was reach out to their HR department. I just approached them. I thought, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Yeah, no loss by doing it.
So I contacted a few companies. I said that I was a graduate, had come out, I was working clinically, but then twisted my experience. And I was truthful, but rather than saying I had 3 years postgraduate experience clinically, I spoke to the overall clinical experience that I gained through my university years. So I mentioned I had 4 years at that point, and I used that to apply for jobs where they made out the requirement was 3 years. And actually I got interviews at 2 of the top companies that I could have got, and from that I ended up working for one of those companies and got out of the NHS within, well, I got my first job within a year.
Yeah. So again, this is where people are asking for steps and how do I do this and what should I do. You have to pay attention to this type of thing. There isn't any steps that either of us took to get the first house, to navigate out some of the struggles that we were having, for Selena to get that job. There was a goal, and we worked backwards from that of how to achieve it. There was no, her mum didn't go, if you do this, and go and learn this and do this course, this will be the result, because it never works out that way.
Just try different things.
Just try different things. And the same with me at this point in my career. I had changed, I think, the jobs 3 times at this point, and each time, bearing in mind, I've got 0, I haven't even got GCSEs. I'm applying for jobs that have all of these requirements and all of this amount of time. I'm working for an electronics company at 17. That should never be the case. But you can see now I must have worked backwards from the goal to achieve that. And same in the company that I was in. I was now in a much better position, much more comfortable for me, a lot more money. Now Selena's employed in that. So we are now quite a long way, theoretically, to buying the home that we wanted.
Yeah, and I had a significant salary jump when I moved from the NHS to one of these companies. And it was all based on me reaching out to their HR department. I wrote cover letters. So if you want to know, I wrote these letters. I created a CV. I found examples of good CVs. I actually have a dedicated video on how to write CVs. I'm very passionate about your CV as a representation of yourself, but also cover letters. I just wrote really passionate what do I call it? A cover letter is an expression of why you want to work for that company.
Yeah, and why you're a fit.
Yeah, I showed my interest, why I thought I was good, and it actually worked. 2 of the companies that I reached out to both came back to me and offered me interviews. And I always say, if you can get to the interview, you're practically there. You can nail it at that point. You can get that. That's what I tell myself.
Some poor person's going to get an interview like, she said I could nail it.
But you have to go in with that attitude.
So, bearing in mind, the goal at this point is to buy our house. So these are the steps that we're taking to get there. So I'd got a new job and a pay rise, and Selena's now applied for a new job and a significant pay rise. So in terms of affordability for this place, we can now afford it, but we don't have the cash, because you need huge sums of money.
You need deposit money, and that was the biggest struggle. We wasn't getting this cash injection from our parents to help us get on that true property ladder.
But if you remember the prior video, I had bought the rest of the home, the part by part rent, at a reduced amount.
Yeah. That was when I was working. When we knew we wanted to buy. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So there's step 1. So it's a decision I made then helped pay back years later. So there's that part of it. The second part is 2 salary jumps. We have more income. The third part is we're not spending huge sums of money on random stuff. The fourth part is, okay, if we're not going to be able to achieve the deposit that we need, firstly, do we look in another area? Now, the answer is yes, and we can do a whole video on this. We looked in another area. I presented Selena. She was not happy because it was miles away from anywhere. Our friends, our family, remote. I think they just built a Morrison's there, a supermarket. There wasn't anything there. But I'm looking at this saying to Selena, I had to sell it. Yeah. It's an opportunity. And I looked up, they were putting in, agreed 100 million over the next 10 years at the time. There was an opportunity for us to get into a home that we really liked, and 2, to make some money. It took a little bit of convincing.
I mean, he said to me, just be open to it. We're going to go there, just be open. Okay.
It was in like a field. So we'll fast forward, and we'd saved up a bit of money, but alongside this there was another opportunity that I don't think we were aware of at the time, but it's called Help to Buy. Another amazing government scheme that gets a lot of rap because it forces house price up, whatever. It's there, it's available. We're taking this opportunity where they put in 20% and we have to put in 5%, something like that, which allows you to reduce your mortgage down to a really low percentage. We had that amount of money in our savings, and you had an additional amount of money so that we could do the place up. So that is what we did. to get into that home. It's a very truncated version of what happened, but you can see there were multiple steps to get to the goal. We just set the goal and then worked backwards from that.
And if you've watched the other video, I can't remember if it's this video now, I mentioned about Excel spreadsheets for tracking. That's how we saved out, well, certainly for me, how I used it to save for the deposit. I was very structured in that way. I knew how much pay I was getting, what our household bills were, and really put a very strict amount on how much to save each month. And if that meant that affected what I could do socially, where we could go out to eat, however, that I was sticking to that amount every single month. I was going to save that because we knew we needed it for the deposit, but also we were battling the ever increasing house prices at the time. So every time we thought we had an amount ready to buy a place, the price, so this is what you're fighting, which is why I always say, just buy as soon as you can. As soon as your money can afford you a place, just do it, because you're always going to be struggling if you're always thinking, oh, what if this happens? Just buy it when you can.
Yeah, this is it is related to this. We advocate this all the time. Nobody listens. But to give you an example, we've been trying to convince my brother for ages to buy a home. Now there came a point where he should have bought it.
He could
in January of this year. Oh, but what if it goes down? What if this? What if that? To cut a long story short, the home prices have gone up, I think, about 11.5% between, it's now August, between January and August, which now makes it unaffordable. Massive mistake. And you can say, oh, but what if it goes down tomorrow? But what if? Yeah. But what if everything? What you can see there is an example of 8 months' time, 8 months from prior to this, it was 11.5% cheaper to buy a home. So we both really advocate, if you can afford it, it fits your need, buy the place and wait. And as we've already gave you an example in the previous video, we bought just before the financial crash, literally just before, and it fell out. But we worked it out from there because it was affordable for us at the time. It wasn't this massive stretch. It was well within our reach. And unless everything went wrong, it should have been fine. We were going to wrap this up, but we've remembered one other key, what would you say, risk that we took that paid off?
So during this whole period of wanting to get out of the flat and buy a house, at that time I had been a few years at the second company and I was happy. And knows I'm generally quite a content person at work. I don't really complain about my work, but I was got to the point where I'd kind of got, okay, I'm done now, I'm ready for the next challenge, and was looking for opportunity within my company. And at this point, LinkedIn started becoming very popular. This is how old we are.
Yeah, I'm not sure it even existed quite much before that.
So I decided to sign up, put a profile on LinkedIn one summer, and then started getting these offers through. And one day this company contacted me with this offer to go and work as a consultant for Philips at the time. And they were offering this crazy daily rate, and it caught my attention. Now, most people just wouldn't necessarily, they might be interested because of the rate. They
wouldn't do it for the risk.
But they wouldn't do it for the risk, because what this company meant was that I would have to leave the comforts of a permanent contracted salaried job, yeah, exactly, and move to being
a day rate.
Yeah, a day rate.
Which means you could be told the following week, thank you, but bye.
And you have to set yourselves up as a limited company, so it's completely different, the risks. But I just thought, you know what, I'm going to do it, as I said before.
And the truth was, there was always one person that could afford to pay the bills. So again, with the synergy, it worked perfectly. Somebody can take a risk, whether that's going to university, where there's no income, or take a risk like that, and we would be fine. You have to work together. And I know there's people that are single, but we can only talk from our experience. Yeah. I am absolutely positive if we were individuals, it would be nearly impossible. That doesn't mean just go and find a random person, but it worked well together there. It wouldn't have been a massive impact should that not have gone well. We also knew you'd built up enough skills and enough contacts that you could go and find some
But this was quite pivotal for me, because up until that point my salary had been quite modest. I think I was on around 55,000 at that point, and I say modest.
You say. That's so in the UK. I just want to I'm going to caveat this. Now, we know that is not a modest salary in the UK, and I just looked up this morning because I was interested. The current average is 31,500, including London. So that is far from modest. That's considered high, and we know it's considered high because at the point back then you hit 45,000. That is the high tax rate where you get taxed 40%. So we're going to retract the modest. It's not modest, but it's not an extreme salary.
It was an extreme salary, and I remember somebody in my family mentioning to me just like my capability. Obviously, you're going to be on a 6-figure salary and blah blah blah. And I just thought, oh no, that's not me. I'm never going to be that person. I honestly just thought that because I just got to a point in the company I was working for and just thinking, well, this is kind of the norm now. It's a very good salary that I was on, and just thought that the 6-figure salary is just completely unobtainable. That's just not me. But then when this company approached me on LinkedIn, it just opened my eyes, and I thought, you know what? I've got nothing to lose, and also only a few months of that job would cover up.
Yeah, and it did.
So I took the risk, went and I did the role for them. I did it for a few months, and yes, I was earning a lot of money for a few months, but realised I didn't really like the job.
So quit that. But that did open, this is how things work. In a great job, but was a little bit frustrated with the rate of progression, I would say.
Yeah, that was it.
So took a chance and left. Somebody noticed that she had left this company and was like, where has she gone?
Yeah.
We need to bring you back. So at the point you didn't realise you really didn't like the contracting role, an opportunity at the company she was trying to find opportunities for had opened up.
Yeah, and it wasn't because I threatened them or anything
No,
like that.
no.
So lots of people thought, oh, I kind of said, oh, I'm going to leave. It wasn't like that. I'd already left. I'd already decided. I didn't even say to them, offer me something or I'm leaving. I had left. I'd quit. I went to work for the other company. But during that time, they asked me to interview for another role. It was somebody I'd never met before. And that's how I got back into that company in a different position. And then that was really when I realised that you can earn lots of money if you want to, and doing something you enjoy.
A little, before we wrap up, a little anecdotal thing. So Selena did not threaten. In the first job at the company that we're currently in, I did threaten. So one morning I was really frustrated. I'd done too much work for too long and people were messing around. So I packed my stuff up and I went to walk through the door, and the manager's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm leaving today. And he's like, you can't. What can I do to keep you here? Now, jokingly, I said $5,000, and he said, wait. And he went, he phoned HR, whoever. Bearing in mind, they were really on the back foot. There was only me in that day. And he come back and said, okay, and got a $5,000 pay rise, like that. Now, this won't usually work. It just happened to be the right timing.
We're not saying to do this, by the way.
But I just thought it was funny because you went a different route, which is probably the right route, and I went for I'm walking out today, I'll work it out, and in the end it worked out.
Yeah, it did. So that was our journey from the apartment to the house, and kind of our separate decisions on how we handled our jobs, careers in that period, and how we saved, and how we handled economic crisis, and how we used the government schemes to our advantage as well.
So hopefully it's been enjoyable. As usual, make sure you like, comment, tell us what you like, tell us what we've missed, tell us what you'd like to come up in some follow-up videos, and make sure you
subscribe.